Alrighty, my name's Nathan and this is Savannah.
Hello.
We will be the exercise physiologists running these sessions over the next 3 to 4 weeks. I'll be running generally the Tuesday and Thursday, and Savannah will be taking you on Mondays after today's session. So how we've planned all our sessions, we'll have a little bit of education at the start of the session, go through a few topics that we find are going to be relevant to that specific session and the focus of it. And then at the end, if you have any questions for us, we can have a little bit of time to go through that. For today's session, you'll just need a chair, and we'll check in with your members to see what you have access to at home. So for the time being, we've designed today just to use a chair, and I'll be running the exercises, and then you can look to Savannah for some little progressions if you find you can work at a bit of a higher level, okay? So to start off with, just want to talk about the importance of heart health and cardio in the grand scheme of things, and then a few ways you can implement this into your everyday life and into your exercise routine. So essentially, any form of movement that is continuous in nature and goes for an extended period of time, we can think about as cardio fitness. So that includes things like walking, jogging, swimming, dancing. All of these will be nice movements that can get you working, get the heart rate up, get the blood pressure up in a good way. And in doing so, slowly start building some exercise capacity and tolerance. So when we do cardio, we are putting our body under stress, healthy stress, provided we're working at the right intensities, and your heart and lungs and your circulatory system adapt to that and can slightly get more efficient at utilizing energy and how we move and utilizing oxygen. So with cardio, it's recommended that you get half an hour a day of continuous exercise at a moderate intensity.
My exercise class.
And if you're just logging in now, you can just check too that you have yourself on mute. We have muted everyone to begin with, but it may click off on your laptop, so just check that. But touching back onto the cardio side of things, if you can, getting little 5-minute blocks of cardio or movement has shown to be effective at improving our cardiovascular health. So in today's session, we're going to work on doing roughly 3-minute blocks and try to build up to a 5-minute capacity over the next coming weeks. Alrighty, the last thing I'd like to talk about before we get into the exercise is something called
it's on Zoom, Colin.
Scale and the talk test. So the Rpe scale stands for your rating of perceived exertion or perceived effort. And
it's live, I can hear you.
Scale from 1 to 10. And what we'd like to do is find the right level or intensity to be working at, and this is the scale you can use to sort of judge that. So a 10 out of 10 effort is like you're basically going to pass out. You can't go any harder than a 10 out of 10, whereas a 0 out of 10 is at rest, almost sleeping it away. What we want to think about is trying to find somewhere around a 4 to 5 out of 10, especially if we're just starting off with exercise, to get it roughly that moderate intensity. And the talk test is a really easy way to gauge that. So when you're exercising, or if you are walking with a partner or a friend, for example, you want to be able to have a conversation and maintain conversation, but it should be a little bit of effort. So if you're chatting, if you're talking comfortably, how I am right now, it's likely that you're only working at somewhere between a 0 to 2 or 3. But if you're talking and it's a little bit puffy and you're having to put in a little bit of effort, then you're starting to get around that 4, maybe 5. And it's at that sort of effort and intensity that our heart's going to be working at a good capacity that allows for more adaptation. Okay? So throughout today's class, just use that talk test as a bit of a gauge. If you feel like you can't maintain a conversation, then you're probably working a little bit higher than you need to be, and you can just rest when needed. So if you're feeling that you're getting over that capacity, just tone it down. If we're still doing exercises, you can just rest and sit. Whereas if you're finding that you're doing this really comfortably, then you might be able to up the speed or look at Savannah for a slightly harder variation. Okay? What you should find is as you continue to do exercise consistently, movements that you first may be doing this week, you're finding are getting you puffed. By the third or fourth week, you might find you're no longer getting that puffiness. You're actually able to do it quite comfortably because you've had that adaptation in your heart, lung, and cardiorespiratory health. Awesome. So to start off with, we're just going to take a seat. We're going to be working on some seated exercises, and I'll turn to Savannah if I find we want to have that little bit of a progression. To get started, we're going to work on doing 30 seconds to a minute for each session, for each exercise, sorry, and then having rest periods throughout. So to start off with, as a nice little test of some of your leg strength and your functional capacity, we're going to do a test straight away. And we can retest this further down the track. And it's also just going to be a very baseline exercise that you'll find comes across in many of our sessions. And it's going to be the sit to stand test. So what I'd like you all to do is just get comfortable on your chair and come forwards to the edge of the chair. If possible, aim to complete this with your arms crossed to make sure that we're not using them for assistance. If you find you can't get up or out of the chair without that, you can use either your armrests or your knees to assist you getting up and down. What we're going to do is 30 seconds worth of standing and sitting, and you're going to challenge yourself to see how many you can do in that time, and also just make a note of how puffy do you feel after it. You can give yourself a bit of a rating of 1 to 10, or go off, can I maintain a conversation right now, or am I quite out of breath? Okay? So get yourself set. We're going to plant our feet, cross your arms if you can, and we're going for as many as we can in 30 seconds, as fast but as safe as you can. Starting in 3, 2, 1, off we go. So standing up, sitting down, going for as many reps as comfortable. As you're doing this movement, try to keep breathing regularly. So aiming to not hold our breath. And ideally, you want to breathe in as you sit down, out as you stand up. We've got 3, 2, 1, resting there. So just have a feel for that. How was 30 seconds worth of sitting and standing? If you found it was quite comfortable, you can look to Savannah, or I might call her Sad, throughout this for a little bit of a progression. If you found that got you quite puffed and you're feeling your heart rate's going up, stick to my exercises for today to keep it a bit more lower intensity. So we're just going to give ourselves another 15 seconds worth of rest, and then we'll get into our first 3 exercises just to start warming up our legs. Alrighty, so the first one we're doing is just simple, easy calf raises, lifting up the back of our heels. So for myself, I'm going to do it seated, but Savannah will do it standing. If you find your balance is a bit tricky, you can do it behind your chair as well. Alrighty, so what we're going to do now is just getting into 30 seconds worth of calf raises. So you're raising those heels up and lowering them back down. So obviously, this is going to be good for strengthening around the ankles and below the knee, but the calf is also very important for helping with circulation and getting some blood flow back to the heart. So it's a great one for reducing, I guess, a bit of, if you're getting accumulation down into your legs or fluid retention, this is just a nice simple exercise that may assist with reducing that and improving your circulation. Good. Keeping that going, aiming for roughly a minute. If you start to get a bit puffy, or your muscles are starting to feel a burn, that's indications that you want to start taking it slower or have a little rest. Good. From our calf raises, we're going to move into now knee raises. So working a bit up the leg into the hips. So I'm, again, just going to do them seated and Sab going to standing. So if we wanted to increase the intensity of this, if you're finding this quite comfortable at home, keep in mind we are going to do this 3 times, that you can go a bit faster if you want to up that intensity, get that workout going a bit harder. Sab's also moving her arms with this, so a bit of coordination and just getting that whole body moving together. Good. Final exercise we're going to do now is side tapping or side stepping. So same with the hips, but we're just going to get the outside of our legs working. I'm just going to do my seated taps. Savannah's going to give you some standing work. So off we go, working out side to side. Try to keep, again, your breath consistent. If possible, aim to breathe in through your nose. We'll talk a little bit more about that in tomorrow's session. And down into your tummy. So keeping that going, keeping that rhythm. We've got another 20 seconds left before we'll have a nice break. Last 10. And 3, 2, 1. Nice job. So we can sit down, Sav, we can have a bit of a breather. We'll have a minute rest now, just in between. So hopefully from attending these sessions over the coming weeks, you'll start learning some simple exercises that you can do, and you can adapt it depending on how you're feeling that day or what exercise you've done that day. So a great little tool, the reason why I like to especially show sitting exercises too, a way to incorporate them into your daily life. A nice little exercise you can try is if you are watching a program on TV and the ads are coming on, you can use some of these while the ad breaks are on, do some marching, do some heel raises, do some side kicks. And that way you're at least breaking up sitting time with some movement. Okay, so big components of today's sort of society is that sitting, and we want to, if we can, every now and then, every half an hour, hour or so, break it up or get the body moving again. So we'll go 10 more seconds of rest, and then we're going again for round 2. So we're going to aim for a minute of each exercise. I'm glad I picked the seated ones. Sav's going to feel a bit more. So off we go again, raising up onto the toes, getting those calves working, getting that blood flowing. Try to keep pushing up as high as you can. If you're on your toes, use a chair if you need to, or if you want to add in that little bit extra balance and coordination, then you can take your hands off the chair. So we've got 20 seconds left. Probably feeling those calves by now. If you need to, again, rest early, by all means do so. 3, 2, 1. Nice job, everyone. Going to move now straight into the marching of our knees. So lifting knees up, getting them nice and high. So if you're sitting, you might find that you're having to use your chair for a bit of support at the moment, or you may be sitting back in the chair. So if that's you, that's completely fine. If you're feeling that's quite comfortable, then I urge you to come forwards on your chair or take your hands away, even crossing them, so that a bit more engagement is required through some of our trunk and throw hip flexors. So we've got our last 10 seconds. And 3, 2, 1. All right, final exercise, side kicks, all the side stepping, off we go, out, side to side. So although we're doing different movements, we are keeping that exercise consistent. So doing this will make our heart rate obviously go up. Our blood pressure may rise a little bit, depending on how hard you're working. Because our muscles are working harder, they need more of that blood flow, and in doing so, increasing the pressure and the rate at which it's pumped will allow our muscles to get that blood flow a bit quicker. That's generally why you'll find when you are exercising, you will get an increase in heart rate and blood pressure and your respiratory rate. So how fast you're breathing to get that oxygen in. Now we've got 10 seconds left. And 3, 2, 1. Having a rest. Nice deep breaths. So we're going to have one more round of that shortly. If you need to, grab a drink or have your water bottle on hand. When we're resting, I really encourage taking nice abdominal breaths through your nose if possible, and then breathing all the way out. Letting the body recover. And it's a nice way to gauge how long to rest for without having to time it. So generally, I would recommend taking 5 to 6 deep breaths. All right, so getting ready now for our last round. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1, off we go. Going into the calf raises again. Now, if you find calf raises standing are a little bit too hard, but calf raises seated are a little bit too easy, ways we can work with that is having weights, if you have access to any dumbbells or even some tins of tomato, anything that's just going to add a little bit extra weight. And we can pop that onto our knees so that now our calves are just having to do a bit more than our body weight, and we can slowly build up some strength leading up into some more of the standing based exercises. So we've got our last 10 seconds coming up. Keep those heels pushing up all the way to the top. And 3, 2, 1. Nice job. Moving into our seated marching for our last round. Try to keep your chest up nice and high when you're doing this. Often when we're raising our knees up, especially if we're a little bit tight through the front of our hip, it may want to pull you downwards. So you want to keep that strength through your mid back. Keep a little bit of that core engaged as you raise those knees up and down. And taking nice breaths as we go. Got a bit over 10 seconds left. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Having a little rest there. Going into our final exercise, the side kicks, each side or side stepping. Off we go. Last minute. Tapping those legs side to side or stepping side to side. So work at a pace that you can control, and you can still maintain a bit of a conversation, even if you're home by yourself. Neighbours might feel you're a bit odd, but you can have a conversation to yourself for a little bit and just see how hard it is for you to talk right now. You can see as I'm continuing to talk and do this exercise, I'm starting to get to that good medium where it's a little bit of effort now, getting that bit of puffiness. If you find that, just focus a little bit more into your breath. Try to find that nice middle ground. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and having a rest there. So we're just going to have a little bit of a rest now, a good 2 minutes. If you have any queries or questions so far that you want to express, you're welcome to talk through the Zoom feed now. Otherwise, we can save them for the end. But just letting your body now recover before we move into our next series of 3 exercises. While we're resting, just speaking on the concept, I guess, of exercise and movement. So right now we are doing some planned exercise. Sam, you might have to fix that for us. So movement is just actually moving your body, getting around. It's walking, but it's not structured or planned specific movement. And that's where we come more into exercise, where we're working for repetitions or sets or durations. So exercise is definitely a great thing to be doing, but on a very baseline level, just increasing your physical activity and your movement is a perfect way to start, not only for our physical health, but also for our mental health. So doing things like these exercise classes is definitely going to help in terms of improving your cardiovascular health and cardiorespiratory fitness, but also looking at your lifestyle and some of your behaviors. For example, trying to increase incidental exercise is another great way to get those benefits. So incidental exercise just refers to walking to your workplace, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, aiming just to increase more of this or adapt this more into your lifestyle is a great way to also help benefit your heart and lung health. Okay, so for our next set of exercises, we're going to incorporate a little bit more of our upper body. So we're going to work on doing some of a boxing based movement, some arm swinging, and a little bit of lifting overhead. I'll again do a bit more of the seated variation. Sad will be doing a slightly harder version standing up, and we're going off the same principle, aiming to do 3 rounds of 1 minute intervals for each with a good minute rest in between. So for your first one, we're just doing air boxing. It might get a bit repetitive, but if you wanted to add some intensity, you can hold some weights or again, tins of fruit or canned tomatoes, anything that's just going to increase that intensity a little bit. I'm just going to do it seated, Saab's doing it standing, and if you want to, you can add in a bit more rotation, play around with it, make it a little bit more fun. Okay, so off we go now, just thinking about that standing or seated boxing, trying to get some repetitive movement through the upper body, keeping your breath up. So boxing is a great one for a bit of coordination, a bit of mobility through our mid-back. This area can definitely get locked up if we're sitting for prolonged periods, or especially with phones, laptops, computers. We tend to, it's hard to not adapt that hunched posture sometimes. So getting some rotation and getting some movement through our upper body is another great way to build on your cardiovascular health and just movement in general. We've got about 10 seconds left. Keep your breath up. Doing very well. All right, now we're going to move into, if you're doing the standing versions, we're going to do a little bit of a squat to a press. If you're sticking with me on the seating, we can think about doing a little tiny lean forwards, then leaning back and raising up. All right, so off we go for the second round. Getting a tiny bit of movement through the back and the upper arms. If you find leaning forwards and backwards is a little bit much on your back, or a bit hard to control, you can just work on staying seated directly upright and just pressing. Now keep in mind, we do tend to stand and sit and walk more often as part of our daily life, but we don't often have to reach overhead and back down for a minute. So if you're finding after a certain period of time, you're starting to get a bit tired through the shoulders or a little bit uncomfortable through the neck, then I urge you to just rest early. But we're almost there. We've got about 10 seconds left. And 3, 2, 1. Nice job. Having a small rest there. Our final movement is going to be raising the arms up to the side. So just thinking about that nice upright posture, keeping our back straight, a little bit of our tummy on as we raise up and down to the side. Off we go. If that's feeling comfortable, you can up the intensity by moving a little bit quicker. And think about taking those nice big breaths as we continue to move through this exercise. So we've got about 25 seconds left. Keep working. Remember to rest if you're feeling that intense burn or you're starting to run out of a bit of breath. And let's go for our last 10 seconds. And 3, 2, 1. Nice job. Having a rest there, everyone. Take some deep breaths in between. Let's aim to do 5 nice deep breaths. So remembering to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. 2 to go. All right, and getting ready now for another round. So remembering that first one, doing our air boxing. Going to start in 3, 2, 1, off we go. The second round is going to be a little bit more intense. As I've already demonstrated the exercises, we're going to go straight into the next one. So we'll have 3 continuous minutes this time of exercise. If you find that your shoulders and your arms are getting a little bit too tired, then you can modify and jump back to the initial exercises we've been doing with our legs. So with this punching, if after a while you're really feeling it, I would urge you to then switch to just doing some seated marching. The main goal is just to keep the body moving for a whole 3 minutes. So we've got 20 seconds to go. Try to get those shoulder blades moving back and forwards. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Straight into now a little bit of squat and reach, or forwards and back. So when you're doing this, you can imagine you're squatting down, then straightening up. As you bring your arms down, try to squeeze your shoulder blades down and together, then raise and push back up towards the ceiling. Good work, everyone. We're a bit past halfway. Another 20 seconds to go. And last 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Nice job. Finally, straight into our arm races. Off we go. 1 minute. Think about raising to shoulder height or just above if that's feeling okay. And then wanting to squeeze our shoulder blades together and down as we bring our arms down. Over the coming weeks, we'll start incorporating some upper body and lower body movements together and get the whole body working. Let's keep that chest nice and high. Keep a little bit of that tummy drawn in if you can. We're going for another 3, 2, 1. Nice big rest. You're standing, you can sit down, you can have a little break. While I'm talking, I want you to think about those nice breaths in through your nose, down into your abdomen, breathing out either through your nose or mouth and trying to get all the air out when you exhale. On top of doing some of this structured exercise for your heart health, what I find is even better is when you can find activities that you really enjoy doing that are also aerobic or cardio based in nature. So doing things like, I guess dancing is an easy one that comes to mind, but if you have access to a pool, any form of aerobics or water walking is another great one, especially if you do get a little bit of pressure on your joints. The pool is an awesome modality that can help release some of that pressure and allow you to move with more freedom while still getting that exercise for your heart and lungs. If you have access to a bike or a stationary bike or an actual recumbent bike, again, great modalities. You can use some of them in front of the TV if you have access to one at home. Pop on your favorite show, but just continue to do that steady state pedaling and build up to 5, 10, 15-minute blocks all the way up to 30 minutes if we can. All right, we're going to go for our last round. So everyone getting ready, standing up if you're standing up, and off we go again. Our final block for this exercise regime. Keeping that breath through our nose if possible. Getting a little bit of rotation. And just checking in with your imaginary friend if you can talk comfortably or not. Almost there. Last 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice breaths. Let's move straight into the next one. Little hinge or little squat up into a press. Remember to think about squeezing your shoulder blades down and together as you're squatting or leaning forwards. And driving up through the heels, drawing that belly in a little bit and reaching towards the ceiling. Doing well, everyone. We're almost there. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For the final little burner, doing our arm races. Off we go. 1 minute's worth. Try to stay up nice and tall. Draw those shoulders back. Draw that tummy in. Doing well, everyone. We're a little bit past halfway. Getting ready for our last 15 seconds. Arms are probably starting to feel heavy. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give your body a good rest. Take some nice deep breaths. And we're just going to do a little bit now, a little bit of stretching now, just to loosen up. So stretching is a great way just to help build a bit of length through the body, relieve a little bit of tension. When you've done a workout, it is good to, depending on how strenuous the activity is, you may want to do a little bit of dynamic-based stretching where you're moving and stretching prior to exercise. It just helps to warm the muscles up, get some heat through those muscles and tissues, and start preparing them for exercise. After exercise, we can look at doing a little bit of static stretching where you're holding them for longer durations. Around stretching, it varies what the best approach is, but for the most part, if you're feeling that you're getting a little bit of relief or feeling like we're getting a little bit more extra length through our body and alignment, then I would encourage you to practice a bit of stretching after your routines and sometimes prior. So I'll go through a bit more of those concepts in better depth in our Thursday session. We're working on more functional strength and ways to restore your mobility. But for now, we're going to do some very simple ones you can use just in a seated position and can be done anywhere, especially again on those ad breaks if we are watching some TV. So unfortunately, you probably can't see my foot very clearly, but I'd like you to put your foot out in front, just the right one to begin with. We'll have our heel on the ground. We'll point our foot up towards you. We're going to keep for now our back straight and just lean forwards within comfort. While you're here, I greatly urge you now to think a bit about your breath. So a lot of people will hold their breath if they're not aware of it. Try to instead take a nice breath in through your nose and then an extended exhale. And in doing so, we're trying to help initiate that bit more of rest and digest system of our body, trying to relax and down-regulate our body. We've given it a good workout now. Now we're just bringing it back to center, letting it calm down and helping to lengthen out a little bit through the back of our legs, which can get quite tight, particularly if you sit for extended periods of the day. So we'll switch legs over. So if we are sitting a lot, you think about that, our hips and our knees tend to get stuck in what's called like a 90-degree angle. So often you'll find if someone's got quite tight hip flexors, they may also have some tight hamstrings with that. And just getting a little bit more length through our joints and our muscles can just help restore more optimal range of motion and of course then better and more efficient movement. With that, when you are stretching, I would urge you to, if you are not feeling a stretch on one side, or with a particular stretch you're not feeling much, then I don't urge you to go searching for it either. So sometimes the body isn't too symmetrical. We might be a bit stiffer on one side than the other. So listen to what your body's telling you. If you do feel tension pretty early on, then you can maintain that stretch. If you don't, then please don't go searching or really forcing stretch. All right, coming back up. So we're about to basically finish up there for today. Today's session, if you hadn't guessed, is about the heart and lung health, and we'll be following a similar structure each Monday, trying to progressively work up to more exercise, a greater duration for our exercise. So today we did 3-minute blocks. If you look at the recommendations around cardiac health, you want to ideally build up to 5-minute blocks of continuous exercise, and you can structure them in throughout your day with the goal of getting a combination of half an hour. If you can, just go for a good 10-minute or 15-minute walk. That's another great way to get that exercise into your day. But if you don't have access to that, or you feel you're not comfortable with that right now, or if you're in that unfortunate situation where you're having to stay at home, then these are great tools you can use to still get some of that cardiac health for yourself into your daily routine. If there's any questions from the viewers at home, you're welcome to unmute your screen now and fire away. We'll just stay here for the next 2 minutes if there's any Q&A. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed the session. And tomorrow, your 8 o'clock session will be with myself. We'll be talking about some concepts around breathing and how to optimize your breathing for both energy utilization, oxygen utilization, as well as if we're in a stressful environment or have had exposure to a lot of stress, how some breathing techniques can help just recenter us, calm down the body. And we're also going to go through some components around balance and gait and posture. With tomorrow's session, though, we will be doing more standing work. So if you find it's a bit of a challenge with balance, make sure you have something next to you where you can hold on to it for support, and we'll progressively build on some elements of balance and help you get a better understanding around that and ways to optimally breathe. Awesome. So if you have any other questions, we've got just another minute or so now. Feel free to fire away. Otherwise, that will be us for today. Yeah.